Hi, I'm Maysha with As Long As You're Breathing, and I am so excited today because look, he's back in the house with me. It's Dianna Leeder of Crave Live. Yeah, we always have too much fun. And Scott, I'm going to have to warn you right now, Dianna, and I can surely talk. So you're going to have to elbow your way in, bud. And welcome, Scott Holmes. How are you?
Very nice. Very nice. Wonderful to be here.
Good. Well, you all know why we're here. It's because we're going to talk about living in great big capital letters, and it's February, so we're going to talk about loving that way too.
It's not over till it's over, or until you start. Make the edge God find you on your own mountain top. As long as you're breathing, keep living. As long as you're breathing, keep living. As long as you're breathing, keep living. As long as you're breathing.
All right, so now we're all back. And oh, Scott, you've got a wider screen now too. Look at that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
I have no idea why.
I'm a very good chair dancer, by the way. So that was fun.
Oh, all right, good.
Cool.
So you're getting down to that, were you? Well, that makes me feel good. So
We'll have to remember that, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
a
think
chair
that-
dance off sometime.
yeah, I think Wednesday when we do our big meeting, we'll have to have Scott's
There we
chair
go.
dance for us.
The things I reveal.
Instead of yoga, we'll do Scott's chair dancing session,
I
or
love
he
it.
can have my meditation spot. He can do it there. All right, you all. Welcome to As Long As You're Breathing. Today it's Valentine's Day, so we want to say Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And of course, we want to talk about relationships, but we're going to talk about it from the standpoint of transcendent men finding their voices, because Dianna, as you all know, is the lead author in the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life series. And well, Dianna, explain to us how you and Scott got hooked up, and welcome again to both of you.
Thank you. So, you know what? The universe just makes things happen, right? So
Yes.
I had planned a men's book. Scott had started a men's book. So the whole concept of transcendence was Scott's piece. He just kind of found me and said, let's do this together, pretty much, eh? And my piece, of course, is the Find Your Voice piece. And I thought about it, and I scratched my head. I thought, how are we gonna make this work? You know, to be fair and be integrity to both of those concepts. And the more I thought about them, I thought they are the same thing.
They are the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, Scott, what do you think? Are they the same thing?
Yes. Just in interviewing all of the authors that we've interviewed, and Dianna, I don't know, we've had probably 25 interviews together.
Mm-hmm.
All of the men that have come to us or through us, whether they chose to be a part of the collaboration or not, they all hit that point in their lives where they found this. They found themselves. They found their higher self. They found their compassion. They found as men, we're taught to live in our heads. We are taught that emotions are bad. And I was disconnected from those emotions for years. If my wife had said to me, what do you feel about this? I'd be like, no, whatever. If she asked me, what do you think about this? I could go on for 2 hours, because everything was in my head. And in finding that transcendent, we think of transcendence, but transcendence is bringing it into yourself and finding that compassion. And compassion is the mother of all traits, I believe, is in that it changes how you see life, how you are, your gratitude about what is in your life.
Yes.
And also just just how you deal with everybody in your life, your perspective, how whether there's abundance or not, whether there's enough, whether you are grateful for the things that you indeed do have, and that when you find yourself, you actually take a different journey than you were on, because now you're traveling your true path.
Yeah.
That we all have to refine. Maysha, you've talked about it many, many times, and when I see your broadcast, it's about going back, stripping away all of that, and finding who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are transcendent men out there. I have friends who are my age, who's 60, who are single for one reason or another, and they're like, "Where are all the guys? Where are all the decent guys?" And I keep telling them they're out there, and they say, "Yeah, but we can't find them." I'm just asking where they're looking, of course. If you're going to a bar trying to look for a transcendent guy, you're probably not going to have very good luck. But if you're working on yourself and raising your vibration higher, you're going to find those men who are at a higher vibrational level. And that's where we're at. The people I've met through my journey, and my wife passed just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of started on my journey, because I had been in caretaker survivor mode for 30 years. And I had so much armor and so much depth to what I was doing that I couldn't have those emotions. I couldn't express those emotions because I had to get through the day. So when my wife passed and all of that came off, and it took a lot of hard work, I found that this passion for healing, and most men that have reached this level, and Dianna, we find this theme all this, no matter what journey they've taken, they get to a certain point and they heal, and they want to heal others. They want to be there for others. They want to give back to others. And it's about that giving and healing part, because they know how hard it was. They know they want to be there for other people. And whether they're coaching or a lot of guys get into alcohol abuse or any of those where they're really changing lives for other men. Most of my clients are women, and yet I find this calling to be able to put men into a position to be able to speak, a safe space, because they don't often have one.
So true.
If they're with a number of men, you don't show emotion. Trust me, you don't tell your inner secrets, because guys aren't like that. They do not share. I mean, if you've had relationships with men, you realize it's very hard to get them to kind of reveal themselves, because of so many layers that they have and so much protective layers they have to be able to function in the world as a man. So we're trying to find a different model for masculinity. We call it masculinity with integrity.
I like the other thing that you call it too.
I love that.
Say again?
I like the other thing that you call it too.
I call the subtitle would be of our book is How to Be a Man Without Being an Asshole. So,
I love it.
So basically, you don't have to be that gruff, rough, charge, be the bull in the china shop, charge through everything, not care about anything, just go through everything. You have to, when you go further into yourself, you realize there are other people there, and that you can take into account other people's feelings, be compassionate with their feelings, and still journey to where you are meant to be. Not always where you want to be, but where you're meant to be. And that's...
Go ahead.
And so that brings me here. I would never thought that I would be that person being interviewed by two absolutely wonderful women on Valentine's Day, and being able to talk about the work that we do.
That is amazing because I love that you said the work that we do. I love that you included yourself because you absolutely do the work. And so, I've loved listening to you, and you've spoken too. So thank you so much for coming out and talking about the changes you've made in your life, because that's, I think, yes, you're finding your voice and you found your voice, but I think the fact that you're leading the way for men to come out and talk about it, I think that's going to save a lot of lives, not just your life. Find your voice, save your life. I think that's going to save a lot of lives. A lot of, maybe not literally save lives, but save a lot of people from damage in their
I
lives.
think it will be. I think it will be, as far as quality of life, as far
Quality
as
of life, right?
Yeah,
Right.
me too.
Yes.
when there isn't all of that going on, all that, I call it hamster on a wheel, just spinning, and just it continues, and nobody, and people that I work with don't know how to get off that hamster wheel. And when you give them that solitude, that clarity, and they go, why am I doing that again?
Yeah.
When they can finally step back and see it. I loved how you projected it, that when you go higher and you have that control tower, view
Control tower,
of your
yes.
life, the control tower view of your life, it changes how nothing's changed, just how you see it.
Right.
And that's what happens when you find yourself, is that nothing really changed. You live in the same place, you drive the same car, you're around the same people, you're working maybe in the same place, but now how you deal with everything is different. How you see things are different. How you relate to them are different. And the gratitude you have for them, that just changes everything.
Yes.
You do life differently, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can I jump in here for a sec? Because you
Go
just said, like,
ahead,
a
yes.
Well,
million
I've been doing all
things.
the talking, so yes.
Well, it's okay. I could do a lot of talking too. But there were just so many things you said that made me think, yes, oh yeah, oh, and then there's
Rabbit holes.
yeah, that's it. So my take on the whole relationship thing with transcendence, throwing that into the mix, whether it's men or women, is really that, and again, this is the same for both, that we are, we succumb to what's in front of us, what we learn, what our traumas and our history bring to us and leave us believing. When society says you need a man to take care of you, and then a man says, society says to a man, you need to take care of a woman and your children, and I realize in terms of divine masculinity and I realize that there is part of that all involved, but when we only use that outside, what's the word?
Version.
That version, that influence, then we stay there. So, if you can imagine, if here I am as a woman, and that's all I'm paying attention to. I'm not looking in here. I'm not looking at my own alignment. I'm looking at what society is telling me I should be like. And along comes a man who's in that same spot, and that's looking pretty good to me. But we don't, neither one of us get the chance to take a look at what really is in here. That the vulnerability, those real issues, that that core stuff for us that is all about who we are and our truth.
We follow our shoulds, what
Yeah.
we should do, what
Yeah.
my parents told me I should be, how I should act, what I should do.
Yeah, exactly.
We just
So
keep
we're
shitting ourselves.
We just keep shitting ourselves, yeah. So we kind of, we step on our own feet in that respect, when we haven't done a lot of work on ourselves before we start into relationships. So
yeah, and you have daughters, and the thing that I wanted to do, and I had 3 daughters, and the one thing that I wanted to give them was independent emotionally, physically, fiscally, and spiritually, so that when that time came, they were full. They were full people, and that when the time came that they wanted to share their life with somebody, it was shared out of mutual interest rather than need.
Yes.
And as somebody at this, because you see so many times young women, and it's like, well, I'm getting to be 29. I have to get married.
Right.
No,
They
you
feel
don't.
that need, and so
You're
they're
right.
No, you don't.
and so the next half available undrunk guy that they meet is, they end up marrying, and 5 years later they split and they wonder why.
Yeah.
So
They wonder why, and then they're somehow triggered to do their own work.
Yes.
Right? Which is always pretty cool.
Or they repeat the same pattern because they haven't done that.
Yes.
And then get triggered finally and do their own
and then
work.
finally, at some point, yeah, it's
hopefully.
like, oh, yeah.
I actually wrote a song years ago called "No White Nights," and it's
I heard it.
You
Yes.
did? Oh, all right. It says, yes, fairy tales raise little girls to believe in men, convince us if we give enough, they'll make us happy in the end. But, it's not just what we do to little girls. We do the same thing to little boys. We teach little boys they are the white knights, and they're supposed to come in and save the day. And so we set up this expectancy of both as children.
Right.
It's true.
And then when you find out you can't ride a horse, you're really screwed.
Yeah, you are if you're in Boston with no horses.
You can't ride a horse. You can't wear the armor. You can't do anything. And so you always fail. You always fall short of that pluperfect expectation of being the shining knight. My nickname among friends is Superman. For this reason, because I always put on my cape to help my friends. I was always there to help other people. Yet I couldn't do that for myself. Wow. And it was always much easier to help other people than it was to look inside myself, because that scared me.
So it was a distraction for you. So many people, the distraction they use not to go in is I'll go to the movies, or I'll go bowling, or I'll go I'll veg out in front of the TV or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with entertaining ourselves. We need downtime. But the problem is when we turn to distraction all the time, so we don't go within. So you just busied yourself, because that's what a lot of us do, is we find something that, well, I'm going to get to that. I know I need to, but this is really important. My friend really needs me. So if it's something really good, I need that second job. Yeah, I need that.
It's just another ism, honestly. We should name that, by the way, and we should name that. But it's another ism. Some people turn to drinking to kind of dull that pain of not being able to look in, or drugs, or sex, or whatever other device. But entertaining themselves to death, because if they're distracted enough, they won't have to look inside. They won't have to do any of the work. They won't have to do any of that. Right. We really should. I'm sure it's out there and it's coined, but we should do it in
I think it should be ignoreism. That's what's coming up for me.
Ooh.
Ignoreism. Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh, I love it. Just ignore it, and maybe it'll go away.
That's it.
That's the elephant in the room for all.
I got stories about that. My wife bought a little elephant. My parents, and how they dealt with issues was, if we ignore it long enough, we won't have to talk about it, and perhaps it'll go away, so we won't have to talk about it. They would look around the room. They would talk around the room, around the elephant sitting in the middle of the room, and never mention it because it was slightly unpleasant. And that was how the house I was raised in. And I've never been able to do that. Most of my life, it's always been, hey, this elephant in the room? Well, we've got to talk about this because it's really distracting. And people would go, oh my, no.
I love it.
So I was always the black sheep of the family. We're talking about elephants and sheep, a lot of animals involved, but.
And horses.
And horses. But it because it was uncomfortable for everyone else, and I was never uncomfortable with dealing with those subjects, and so I've always been that kind of odd man out. Whether it was yoga, and I was the guy with 25 women in a yoga class, or when I did Reiki, or when I did polarity, or when I've done gone to mediums, I'm the guy in there going, yeah, that's great. And all the women are just like, how do we deal with this guy? Or at Girl Scouts, when my daughter went to camp and I was the dad, and I was the one guy that was involved with Girl Scouts and Brownies at that moment, because and all the leaders are looking at me like, what do we do with him? So what did I do? I got all the girls. We went for a walk so the leaders could take showers and do their hair and do everything else so they could do that. And they finally realized after a couple of days that having me around wasn't so bad. So I've always made sure that because of raising daughters, that I've always made sure that anytime I'm in the presence of women, that they feel comfortable. I do that with my clients, so that because there are so many women that have been traumatized or used or taken advantage of by people in positions of power or relationships. And so I always want to make sure that they have that or feel protected. It's the big dad thing. Okay. I'm always a dad, and always want to make sure that that people are comfortable.
Yeah. It's that safe space. It's beautiful. Yeah.
And in the same way with guys, just being able to, because the fail safe is if somebody says something even remotely emotional or soft, what's viewed as soft, that you have to bust them. Okay, you gotta make fun of them. You gotta give them a line. You gotta whatever. That's the fail safe. Oh yeah, right. Okay, yeah. But given a space, and Dianna, you've seen this many times. I'm sure you have, Maysha. Is that they have those allow those emotions to come out if they're in that safe space, and you go, huh? They're really not all that different from us. Women say.
Well, and that safe space that we're talking about is when we have relationships that are, we know who we are, we're whole and complete, and we create that separate container, which is another dimension of relationship, which is what we're all doing now. We're all realizing, 1 + 1. We do right. It's 3. We do have interdependency, but we're not so commingled that we've handed each other, I know y'all have heard me say this, our list of expectancies and said, this is what I expect of you. Instead, we create that safe container, that other dimension of relationship for a person to feel safe to come and say, this is what you can expect of me. This is who I am. And if we're going to be in a relationship with someone, they've got to have that, or it's not going to be a successful relationship. Yeah. Dianna, you were going to say something. Yeah.
You know what, I was just going to say, and just along those same lines, that when we are in relationship, whether, depending on where we are in our healing and how much we can actually do that, because as we've already said, there's so many things in the way for both men and women to not engage, to ignore their own stuff so that we can just kind of survive. So, knowing when those things come up, and I'd really like to get us talking a little bit more about this too, because I'd love to be able to leave the listeners with something that they can take away and use, in terms of tips, because, when we're in a relationship and we don't have, if one of us can't speak something that is so truthful, if one of us is paying attention to, or are not paying attention, ignoring the unicorn or the elephant in the middle of the room, that you can't do anything with that. You can't move forward. You can't build that. You can't be whole, and you can't build that third entity either. So so that's where I was going with that, was doing our own work, each of us doing our own work to be able to use our voices, to be able to be self-aligned, is so vital to this, all of it.
Yeah, I was always taught that when you got married, that you basically lost your identity. You became the role, and the beauty of the relationship that I have now is that she allows me to do and be what I need to, and always supports. When we're able to communicate it, and if there's something wrong, it used to be when someone said we need to talk, I would get these.
We're in the headlight look.
Oh yeah,
more animals. We're channeling the animal kingdom today.
A lot of animals today,
Well,
And
Joe Russell's the wild alligator.
and now there's
Go ahead.
Are you ready for that,
That's
Scott?
okay.
The wild alligator?
that's funny. So just the ability to not have that sense of dread or fear of, no matter what comes out, it's accepted. That acceptance, that's where the compassion comes in. That's where the understanding comes in. That's in the relationship. That's all. I've found that most of my the women I deal with, that's all they're looking for, is to be heard, to be in a safe space, so that when they say something, it isn't taken as a challenge. It's not taken as a threat, or it's not taken as any of that, but just to be heard. And that's the trick.
Sorry, interrupted.
No, go ahead, Dianna.
No, please let Scott finish. Sorry.
I'm done.
You're done. You're good at that. Well, my thought was that you were talking about healing earlier in the safe space that you offer your clients. How and that's so important, because if we're in that kind of situation where we just want to be heard, and I think that's the same for guys as well. We just want to be heard, and we have this in a relationship. We have this third expectation, that is, we hear each other. But if we're not healed enough to do that, or to know somewhere inside us that even if this other person cannot hear us right now, we are still whole and complete. And our energy, and Maysha, I know you're going to jump in here with 4 feet, which I love. Our energy is still whole and complete, because we've started as 1 and 1 and 3. Right?
Yes.
So we heal, they heal, and then this is one powerful union.
I think what a lot of women find is they're good at that with their female friends, but then when it comes to the men, that's why we need the transcendent. We probably ought to define transcendent, but that's why you're not sure. I mean, even though you're healed and you're whole and complete, and you know that, you're like, okay, but now I'm in with a crowd that I don't know that it's safe to do that. And so I think finding men who are transcendent, or extraordinary is one word for transcendent, but by transcendent, I think what we're all saying is that they're able to transcend the mind, or become beyond the mind, and they're actually able to go to the heart space, which is where our intuition is, of course, as y'all know, or get into the gut, which has a mind of its own too, the instinctive parts of us that just knows, my gut reaction. And we're able to put those forward first, because as in yoga, which Elizabeth Kipp talks about, we sit the way you sit in yoga, so the heart is beyond the mind. The head is back and the heart is out, because the mind is only programmed, as we know. It only knows what, once we've gotten here, and the programs that we have. And so we need to be able to transcend that. And it also has to do with the going up and down, because yes, we have to go here, but then we do have to come up and check in with the mind, but we have to get up to the control tower too. We have to be able to ascend up above the mind, or transverse it, or transcend it, and connect with our guidance there too. And so those of us who speak that way and think that way, when we know that we're in company with people who do that, then we feel safer. But when we get out into the world and we're like, I'm not so sure that that's how they think or feel, we still don't want to upset the apple cart. We still don't know if we've got a safe space or not. And so how do we handle that, you all? Because when we're all together, we do great, but you put us in a room where we're like, okay, we're just not sure. Even though we're brave and bold, and we're ourselves, very much ourselves, we still find ourselves holding back a little bit. So is that necessary? Do we need to hold back some in those situations? I don't think we do, but at the same time, there's that discomfort. So how do we make others, how do we get that across, that it's comfortable? Go ahead and be yourself. And that's how we lead others to transcendence, is by being that way to begin with.
I think that's the inner work. That's the stuff where we have to shift to say, again, I'm still whole, even if what I say doesn't land the way that I may want it to, I may like it to, because it doesn't change the fact that it's still my reality, my truth, and my being. So that's the piece I think that we need to get to, is that wholeness of self, that acceptance of wholeness of self, so that we can then interact from there. And because not everything is going to land with everybody, you know, I often, I'm the practical girl, right? So I always talk about my next door neighbor. I hope these are new neighbors for me. So I hope they don't ever listen to this stuff and think I'm talking about them, because, you know, half the time I'm not even sure that I know their names, the right names. But, you know, if you're talking about, you know, I mean, if I'm talking to them, if I'm in a conversation with them, now granted, what I'm talking about is going to be very different than what I would talk about with my spouse, right? Hopefully, but I need to be sure enough about myself and what I'm saying, you know, what I know about myself, so that I could express it, so that I'm comfortable saying it. Right. So, and knowing that, you know, like, you're a really great neighbor, and I will, you know, I'm being myself here, and here it is. And, you know, if someone has, you know, a reaction to that is not pleasant, or what you may like to have happen, or they don't agree, well, that's okay. You know, and honestly, I think that that's part of the, and this is going way bigger, but that's part of what's wrong in the world today, is that we don't accept that somebody else is entitled to another opinion.
Oh,
you know?
you're so right.
We don't accept it.
So
you know,
right.
We think that we're, you know, you have to agree with me, and I'm broken if you don't. Yeah. So
having been the black sheep for so long, I found that it didn't matter what I said. So I tell people, kind of on the glossary, kind of gloss and say, this is what I do. And if they want, they have to seek me out in order to go further, because most people don't want to go further, or think further, or it's not the right time, or they're going through a hard time. And it's much like my daughter was multiply handicapped. And so my youngest, and in doing that, I saw a lot of parents who kind of wore that, and they were parents of multiply handicapped children, and they wore it on their sleeve, and that was the only kind of point in their life. And there would be people who would meet me and would never know it, because I didn't want to wear that as, you know, I wear it as a badge of honor as a parent, but it wasn't my sole purpose of being.
Yeah, it wasn't your identity.
It was not my identity. And so I guess the point is that when I go out and talk about some of the things that I do, whether it's writing a book or any of it, and I have friends who are, should we say, less evolved. We're sitting around having a beer or whatever, and throwing darts. They're not going to talk about the same subjects that we're going to talk about here today, but they know what I do, and they know that I can heal, and they know that I can do these things, but they just kind of go, that's Scott. That's just what he does. They accept it as, okay, it's over there in the corner, but I don't throw it at them all the time.
He does all that, but he doesn't throw it in our faces. He doesn't. Yeah. I don't, because I don't want to make it awkward, because I don't want to push that on anybody ever. Right. Well, energetically, what I think we have to remember is, of course, I was going to take it back to energy, right?
Yeah.
You knew that was coming. All right. Energetically, the thing is, if we don't go ahead and be ourselves, then what we're going to do is we're going to attract in the wrong people to us, because by being in our vibrational alignment, by being who we are, then we attract in the right people to us. We are attracting matching energies. And so we're not going to have as much as that. But of course, we are out in the world. And so, yes, we are going to be around people because of our jobs or whatever that we didn't necessarily attract into us, the situation did. But we are going to attract people into us because we're in our vibrational alignment. Now, sometimes we enter people's orbits, and we're there to help bring them up to that vibrational alignment. And I really hesitate to use those bring them up, because there's nothing wrong with where they are. They're at a vibrational place because of their current awareness, their energetic awareness, because that's what they know. That's just where we're at. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But once you are around other people and you see they're vibrating differently than you, let's not say it is higher vibration because of it, but it doesn't, higher doesn't mean better, but they're vibrating at a different frequency than you. You're either going to be drawn into that and change yourself and say, ooh, I like that. I want some of that. And you're going to be drawn into that. We pull them into our orbit, and their vibration comes up. Or they reject that, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. But then there are those who are just tolerant, and it's like, okay, as long as it's don't ask, don't tell, we're good with it, And there are those too. But yeah, that is what we're here on the planet to do, is raise the vibration of the planet, and we do that by it's really all about mutual respect for one another. When we mutually respect where the other's at, and we don't label. That's why I hate saying when we raise their vibration or that. But I mean, technically, energetically, that's what we're doing. But there are no labels here. People just are where they are.
Exactly.
And we have to accept where people are and meet them where they're at. But that doesn't mean we lower our own vibration to do it. And so that's where it can get a little hairy, is because sometimes that gets hairy. Yeah, go ahead.
It gets very hairy because I when I would go to help people, and sometimes they didn't want the help, but because I saw there was a need, I would automatically, my knee-jerk reaction was, I need to help that person.
Yeah.
And they didn't always necessarily want the help, or I knew they needed it, but they didn't know they needed it. So it's understanding where your vibration is, and understanding that, that's why I've kind of come back. I would go right to people who were in need. And so I was attracting all those people in need. And so they're going, oh, great. And pull all that energy. So now I stay back and I wait for people to come to me. I was walking in the door of where I work at one of the buildings, and the woman at the door looked at me, and I went, hi. She went, hi. and it was because she said, when I started talking to her, you walked in the door, and she said, I have to meet you. There's something about you. There's that energy. And then she told me she could see auras. Yeah. She really was. She wasn't really working with it, but she could see auras. And she said, you walked in and it was just white all around you, and I didn't know what to do, and I just had to meet you. And wow. That was for me. That I don't see auras. I feel, but that was really like, oh, well, thank you very much for the compliment.
It is, yes. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So yeah, Dianna, go ahead. What did you have to say?
I was going to say, relative to the comment about, accepting where people are, that I really believe that, hatred doesn't live in us. I think hatred comes from pain. So some of what's happening, I think, in the world is because of that pain. I have a hard time really believing that really true alignment in every single person in this world, and this may be a big assumption on my part, but I don't think that hatred is part of that. I don't think anybody is truly aligned to hatred. I think it comes from pain, it comes from trauma, it comes from past experiences, past lives, whatever. I don't think it's part of our true aligned selves.
Love the sentiment.
Yes, I agree. I think, how we say everyone is just doing the best they can. I believe that. I believe everyone is at where they're at, and they're doing the best they can. And so to raise, as I've been talking about a lot lately, to do a quantum leap to raise our vibration, the fastest thing we can do is just go into complete I forgive. Because if the highest vibrational frequency is unconditional love, then the low one, the bugaboo, the one that's pulling us down, is the fact that we haven't forgiven. Because in the end, that is the emotion we end up feeling, is we end up being offended, we ended up being hurt, we ended up being whatever that pulls us down. And so just forgive all of it and release it. Because you can't change where that person is at. You can't change what the situation was. We can't do any of those things, but we can choose to transmute that energy, use forgiveness, and raise the vibration up, transmute it up to a higher. And it's only negative because it is below where we want to be. Positive is where we want to be. The good stuff, the stuff that feels good. Anything below it, that's what makes it negative. The fact that somebody is sad or hurt or none of those things, it doesn't make them bad or in a negative light. It's just below. It's below where we all want to be. So it's negative in that sense. So we've got to change the whole vernacular of this stuff, because I'm coming up with new things all the time. We've got to get from positive and negative to some other way of addressing this. Because when we tell people you're lower vibrational than we are, that automatically, I mean, think about that. I want to be high vibrational, therefore you're not high vibrational. Well, excuse me, so we have to come up with a different way to say this to people. Like I won't use the word ego for mind, because so many people hear I'm egotistical. She thinks I think I'm something or whatever. No, it's the dimension of the mind, and so I've spent, I don't know how long now, saying, okay, we got to change the language here so we can communicate to people without making people feel labeled or put down or that we're condescending to them. So yeah, go ahead, Scott. I see you're bursting at seams. You're having no trouble keeping up with us too. That's very transcendent of you.
I was a little worried there for a minute, but when in any of the modalities, we talk about the duality of who we are inside. And when if I go to the technical aspect and I tell men that they have to find their inner feminine, okay, we're talking about vernacular. We're talking about how we label things. Okay,
right.
That if they find their inner feminine, they're going to punch me in the nose.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's truly what they're doing, is they're finding those aspects of themselves that are truly the unconditional love, the compassion, all of that. And so it's a matter of labeling and how we, it's not lower vibration, because when you're talking about everything in life, vibration, you need a positive and a negative charge to go together in order to make a whole. So you cannot have joy without knowing what pain or any of that is. There's for every dark there is a light. You need to have those opposites. And for joy to be truly joyful, you have to have experienced things that weren't so good. There has to be that and that's what life is that positive and negative. It doesn't make it bad. It just makes it different. And when you put them together, that's when you make a whole, and then you can raise it up. And that's when as you're transmuting. That's when I deal with my my clients. It's transmuting that pain and bringing it up, putting it together with a positive charge to be able to kind of lift it up, like a bubble, air bubble coming up through the water to kind of go up. It's not all sunshines and unicorns.
I don't know about that.
Although the song was pretty good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But I see you took my challenge there. But the other aspect of that is too, though. I know we live in a world of duality and polarity, and I know that. But that's only because we, as a people, had these energies that were held within us that have caused that. We've had the Kundalini didn't rise and go up and disperse out through the other chakras because we weren't utilizing those other chakras. The Kundalini energy got trapped because the crown chakra was not sufficient for it to disperse through. And so that energy became an aggressive energy that has actually taken us and turned us into a more aggressive people. We are certainly capable of having it good and knowing for that it's gooder, and then it's really gooder. We don't have to go all the way to rock bottom to know what good is. And so, but because we had those, we were experiencing that entrapment of this aggressive energy, and it wasn't dispersing correctly. That's how we dropped into those vibrations to begin with. We were capable of coming here and knowing this is good. Wow, this is gooder. This is gooder than that. And that's the goodest ever. Oh, wait a second. It's gooder than that. We were capable of that and meant to come here and experience it that way. But once we shut down those chakras and trapped that aggressive energy within us, no, we weren't, because then there was no place for that aggressive energy to go. And we did drop down into a vibrational frequency that's what we became. We became a polarizing people then. We became duality then. And I know that gets way beyond the scope of what we're talking about, but that is one of the things that society has taught us is, well, if we don't know the bad, we're not going to know the good. Not true. I can know good, and I can know when it's better than good. And that's what we came here to do. That is the lives we came here to live, is these amazing lives. But because of the way we have energetically been living, and because of the fact that we haven't known how to access our energetic bodies and use them in totality, that is how we got to that place to begin with. That is how we became a polarized society of duality. And that is not at all what we were designed to be. The high crystalline beings of like the Atlanteans and all of that, no, that wasn't the design at all. And so that is why understanding our energetic bodies and going back to the point where we're utilizing we're transcending, we're going up and down, we're utilizing all of that. Eventually, we will get to the point where I know what good is. I know what gooder is. I know. So we are going to evolve beyond that. And that is going to be a beautiful point in time when we get to there, where the polarity is gone and we don't have to know bad to know that gooder, best as ever. Oh, wait, there's even better. We are people who are capable of doing that. And as a society, I know we're going to get there.
Beautifully said. I often say that you express my feelings better than I can.
Thank you.
Honestly, because I was very, very drawn to what you were saying, because that's how I see it, the progression. I see how I see life, how I see for all the people that I deal with, how they can take that journey and just kind of, it's like taking the top off, the energy blows out, and all of a sudden, all this energy is flowing through. They don't know how to handle it because they've never had it before. And it's just this, whoa, the aha moments. It's wonderful.
Right.
It's when you see it. And it changes their life because they had that perspective. Once you have it, you can't take it back. Once you see it,
Can't take it back.
once you
take it back.
You cannot take it back, and you cannot go back to the way you did things before. And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Okay.
It's Valentine's Day. People are talking about relationships, and it's all about if you are solid within yourself, if you work on yourself and make you the best that you can be.
Yes.
That best you were meant to be. Truly find that reason you were put on this earth.
Yeah.
You will find that happiness is just kind of what it is that happens when you are in full. When you are in full, when you are as clear as can be, your clarity is there, your balance is there, that life is going to happen. And it's a matter of how you look at it in a perspective. And for those women out there who are looking for a guy that to manifest that person in their life, please raise your vibration. You will find that man with a higher vibration and be what you would really truly like.
Yeah. Dianna?
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I think that we have to do our own stuff first so that we are that whole being before we engage, because then we're relying on us. We're totally relying on us. And when we do that, again, as you guys have both said, then we are attracting like people. right? So they're going to be people that we would be happier in a relationship with than others. It's kind of that simple. But I also think there's, it's there's that piece about, when I say, work on ourselves, yeah, we have to work on ourselves. And yeah, sometimes that can be a little difficult because we have some things we have to work through. We have to understand what our traumas are, and we have to manage them however we need to manage them, and with who we need to manage them with. But there is great joy and fulfillment in that, accepting that love for yourself.
Yes.
To really stop and say, okay, this is, I call it Love Day. This is Valentine's Day. This is Love Day. How do I turn this inward instead of, looking outside, looking at, sappy cards, looking at the flowers, all the things that we are supposed to either give or receive, supposed to, how do we turn that inward so that we are, that we grow ourselves? That's part of our healing. Turning that in is part of our healing. So what do we find loving? What do we need to do to feel love for ourselves, in ourselves? And it can be as easy as, a meditation or a point of awareness, or, you know what? I need to go have a bath right now. I need to go have a bath right now, or sleep. It doesn't matter what it is. We get to determine that. But I think that is a very, very powerful piece of this. Which will raise our own vibration, which will have us, our energy vibrating at that different level again, and attracting people at that same level.
And once we have gotten to that point, once we have that within ourselves, then all of those quote unquote sappy things have a whole different meaning. When the flowers come, they mean something entirely different, because, well, I didn't get flowers because I was worthy of it. I didn't get flowers to validate me. I got flowers because, yeah, I'm worthy of it. The flowers, then we don't even have to think of it in those terms. It's just the flowers came because the flowers came. The flowers didn't come because the flowers came to make you feel worthy. You just are worthy. And so the flowers come in, you can just accept them as, okay, the flowers came. And then if the flowers don't come, okay, there were no flowers. I'm good anyway. So it's that. It's so the things that do come along in our lives, because when we talk about all the shoulding and not shoulding, sometimes then people get confused and they're like, well, but I wanted to do that. It would be a good, but I shouldn't because I should. And then people start getting confused. And so it's not about should you or shouldn't you. It's about where is the person at to understand that, where are they at consciously about it, and where were you at consciously when you did it? Because if the person knows they sent those to manipulate me, well, then that doesn't work either. And so that's why we all have to be at this point where we're above all the labels and we're above all of that, and we know ourselves. And so then we can enjoy, if we've got some transcendent man out there that is sending flowers and candy, you go for it, because you're probably with a transcendent person who's going to see them and they're going to know that they got them for the right reason.
And all of that is moot when there's chocolate involved. That's all.
There's chocolate is a staple of life.
No.
It's a food group. I mean, if
chocolate's
not in the house, if chocolate's not in the house, then it's not safe. You know that it's if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. If there's no chocolate in the house, okay, ain't nobody gonna be happy.
Yeah, very true. As I sit here with it right beside me,
Okay, the other part of this is we're talking about how we do this with ourselves, and we're talking about, well, we need to do it first. Well, here's the problem. It's not a Superman movie. We can't stop the planet. We can't stop everything that's happening and say, okay, you all hold off with your stuff right now while I fix myself so I can do this better. And then let's start up again. We can't do that. So how do we do all of this and life go on? I mean, we don't all get to, we can all wear capes if we want to, but we can't stop the planet and turn it back around and all of that stuff. So how do we do this living in real time? How do we do that?
Go, Dianna.
It goes back again to honoring ourselves.
Honor ourselves.
Absolutely. We have to honor ourselves, because we can't engage any other way without, and I won't say the word I was going to say, but without messing up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, yes, we fuck with our relationships by not putting our wholeness out,
Right.
by not being who we are, by not honoring who we are. So, okay, I really need, and here's one that was always a very interesting point for me, and even in my relationships, how do we, each of us, how do we feel loved?
Yes.
What's that need in us? And often we will give love the way that we expect love, and that's not always the way that lands, right? So that belongs in the in that area of the third embody, right? Embody.
Yeah, the third dimension and the third body. Yes, it belongs in that
yeah.
safe space. Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to honor that in yourself, right? You have to, in all of it, you have to honor yourself first. Put yourself first.
Right. Yes, Scott.
Yeah, and what I find is, for me with relationships and the way that it goes is, I ask people, do you have 10 minutes to give to yourself? And they look at me. What do you mean? Do you have 10 minutes that you can give to yourself first thing in the morning? Well, I don't know. I have my kids, my husband, my job. I said, get up 10 minutes earlier. Give that 10 minutes to yourself. It'll be the most important 10 minutes of the day. And when we're talking about relationships, the one thing that I found is the hardest to achieve within that third dimension is intimacy. And intimacy takes another whole dimension when you're talking about it, because it's not necessarily physical intimacy. It's the intimacy of knowing the person you're with so well because they allow you to, because they open up to you, because they are safe in that space that you've created with them, that intimacy is there. That I'll on my way home, I'll say, okay, I'm gonna pick up dinner. I'm gonna pick up chicken. And she says, how did you know I was thinking that? That intimacy of understanding, that intimacy of connection, that intimacy of just knowing. And that's where I find satisfaction in the relationship, is when you have that connection, that there is so much unspoken, that there's a knowing there, that there is a acceptance that everything is okay, no matter what it is, good, bad, what you think is good or bad or anything else, it's all okay.
It's all okay.
It just is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because
yes, it's all okay. No matter if we do fuck up, Dianna, as you said, no matter if we do, we're accepted for that, and we get the chance to and the other thing I was going to say is communicate about it, because we have to do this in real time, because we can't stop the planet and all of those things. We have to communicate about it. Doesn't mean they have to agree with us. Doesn't mean they have to jump on the train with us and do the work too. But we have to be able to communicate about everything. If we don't communicate, if we do all of this in isolation, if we isolate ourselves to do it, if we don't communicate about it,
exactly,
the relationships aren't going to be able, and the fact that we do communicate about it, that is how we also open ourselves up to raise the vibrations of other people. I mean, that is what we're here to do. So we can all become very vibrational and be very heady about it and be like, here I'm sitting here, kumbaya, I've done it, my vibration's up here, I am transcended, etc. But if we don't go out in the world and do something with that, if we don't communicate with people about it, we're just sitting there high vibrational, and maybe if somebody comes by, yes, they're going to be attracted into our orbit because of it, but we have to.
Or you're sitting on the top of a mountain by yourself.
You're sitting on a mountain all by yourself, your own mountaintop, and you're all by yourself. And so as long as we're breathing, you just closed the show for us perfectly. As long as we're breathing, I don't want anybody to be sitting on their mountaintop all by themselves, because we are, whether we like it or not, we are energetic beings. We are energy. We are part of a whole. And so we are always in relationship. So sitting on your own mountaintop, yes, that's a wonderful thing. We are self. That is a wonderful thing. But as long as we're breathing, I think it's always better if we're on that mountaintop, realizing we're in relationship and having healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Wonderfully said.
Thank you.
I love it. Can I just pop in one last thing though before we wrap up?
Yes.
And I know we've been talking because this is the Transcendent Men book. So, we've been doing the, male, female, women and men. It's not, obviously, it's not, life is not just men and women. So I want to point that out too. This is everything that we've talked about today is about people in relationships and can apply to either side, either gender or a non-identified, person, sister.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important. And I want to just tell people, watch for the book. It's coming out in August. And I know Scott is as excited about it as I am. It's going to be awesome. We've got such an amazing lineup of authors that, it's just going to blow you away. It's going to be a new way of looking at relationships for sure. And a lot of times people have said, this is a book by men for men. It's not just for men, right? It's for women too. It's for anybody who wants to learn how to make their relationship stronger, or even to what they're looking for in a relationship, which will help them identify how they can be stronger.
Absolutely. Thank you both for being on. I appreciate that so much. And so as we close, I want to tell everyone that while we have been talking, of course, about relationships, and as Dianna said, all relationships, we all are in relationship all the time, whether it's at work today, whether it's your friend, whoever it is, relationship is relationship. So it is Love Day. Let's all be showing love in great big capital letters to everyone, because that is what's going to change the whole world. So as long as you're breathing, you all.
Thank you.